We're here. We are here for the very first Success by the Book monthly recap. Thank you so much for being here. If you are here with us, I'm sure we're going to have more and more people joining these first couple of minutes as people get registered and set up and joined in. But we are so excited to have everyone together and to start building a true community so that we can all come together. We can hear your thoughts. You can obviously hear these great men's thoughts. So this is really exciting. Thank you for being with us. So let me go ahead and introduce our amazing panel that's with us every single week. As you know, we normally stream live every Monday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. And that, of course, is with Coach Bill Hart, who is the National Leadership Coach over at Movement Mortgage. Coach, good to see you.
Good to be here.
We've got my father, Dale Vermillion, the founder and CEO of Mortgage Champions. Dad?
Great to be here.
And of course, we have the serial entrepreneur himself and the creator of Rethink Everything, Coach Kyle Draper. Kyle, thanks for being here, bro.
Good morning, guys.
Goes wild. Yes.
So today, we're actually recapping the first 4 episodes that we have of Success by the Book. We talked about overcoming anxiety. We talked about how selflessness builds trust. We talked about how you have to be dedicated to your craft and or become a master of it. And then, of course, we talked about how to actually every day be prepared to be successful in the small things and in the big things. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to revisit your guys' best advice and just let the audience sort of lead the conversation. So I'd love to start with episode 1. Coach Bill, let's start with you because you were the first one who said, hey, the first thing we got to talk about when we're starting this show, we're talking about how we apply biblical principles and truth to life and business situations. And you said, the reality is there's a lot of anxiety out there, right? Almost an epidemic of anxiety. So there were so many things that you said in that episode that rung true with me. But let's start with just the big picture, the power of mindset when it comes to how do you sit in confidence versus sitting in fear as a loan officer in today's market?
Yeah, well, it is still true. Like not much has changed in the last 30 days. In my experience, I'm talking to people every day inside and outside of my company and speaking to a conference next week. And I just know that it's out there, that pressure is out there, that lack of certainty that I think we had in this industry for so long. And I was looking something up in anticipation of this show that I've quoted a lot, but I never really knew where it came from. And I'm sure you guys have all heard the expression, God don't make no junk. Now, I've looked, I haven't found that specifically in the Bible, but that's because
I thought Jesus was quoted as saying that, I think.
Right. Well, I'm not sure which version that was, but I do know it's attributed to Ethel Waters, who is a jazz singer. And the line in the song was, I know I'm somebody because God made me and God don't make no junk. Like, how good is that? How good is that? So, I think, Jake, as I process this idea, we live in a time where we are, it is so easy for us to fall into behavioral assessments and personality tests and the way that we look and the way that we talk and how our social media looks. And, I just think Kyle has been such a great example of this for people. I've told people this before, but when he sent me the galley copy or the raw edits of his first book, he said, I'd love for you to go over it. And I gave him some feedback and he said, yeah, coach, love you. But if I make those changes, people are going to know it's not me. It doesn't sound like me. And so I just think that the simplest way that I can encourage people right now, Jake, is to just say, man, if you believe Ethel Waters and God don't make no junk, then you were designed the way that you were designed for a reason. Show up as the best version of you. Don't try to be somebody else. And just kind of embrace that as you move forward. My personal experience is I don't know how to, just like Kyle and Dale, I know you do the same thing. I don't know how to be anybody else. In the beginning, I did. In the early days of my career, I tried really hard to be like my boss, and I emulated him in everything that I did. And later I realized I'm going to be the best Bill Hart I know how to do. And for each of you to be encouraged by that would be my strongest, probably, encouragement to you this morning.
That's such a great encouragement. Like, you have to come as your authentic self.
Yeah.
It reminds me of something that Kyle also brought up in episode 1, which was this idea of what you do isn't necessarily like who you are or what you're called to be. And I know, Kyle, you shared a story of like what that looked like transitioning out of full-time ministry into the business world. Can you kind of relay some of that experience and the truths you took away from that?
Oh yeah. So, when I was 20, I said yes to ministry. I was a 5th generation pastor at the time. And so I thought, gosh, I'm going to do this for the next 50 years of my life. And that was my identity. And so when I would meet people, like I couldn't get the word pastor out of my mouth fast enough because I was like, I want people to be impressed. I want people to think I'm smart. And I think pastors are impressive and smart. And so, I mean, that was what I always led with. And then God says, go work in the business world. And now all of a sudden, the thing that I had hung on my mantle to represent who I was gone. And I woke up that next morning and went, oh my gosh, what have I done? The thing that I love the most about the last decade of my life is no longer true about me in title. And it was really, really hard. And I didn't tell this story in episode 1, Jake, but about a year after I left church ministry, I was asked to go preach at a church. And there's probably 600-700 people in the room. And I thought I did a pretty good job, and we were driving home, and my wife was with me, and I just said, honey, I said, how did you think I did? And she said, that's the first time in 10 years that I think you truly preached as yourself.
Wow.
Because for 10 years, I was trying to be my favorite pastors.
Sure.
But now that I no longer was one, I was just willing to show up as Kyle. And it was just such a game changer to finally be able to honestly say, you're going to love me or you're not. And God made me uniquely the way that I am. God don't make no junk. And it changed my life to see now what I do every day in the business world, to just know that, like, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Hello, you're not going to be every realtor's number one choice. You don't want to be every realtor's number one choice.
For sure.
Right? You only need 5 to 10 of them to actually love and care about you and value what you value. And so the faster we can just come into agreement with, I'm already enough of who God wants me to be to make an impact. I think that's huge.
That's so good. And I know we talked about when you get out of that mode of sort of worrying about who you are and pretending to be like the other people that you're supposed to be like and all of those things, what it allows you to do is refocus on, like, what is the impact that I actually have every single day in the role that I'm in? And Dad, I know you talk about this all the time. In the mortgage industry, what we do is we make the American dream possible. So can you kind of reset people's mindset right now of, like, in episode, I think it was 2 or 3, Kyle brought up another point of, like, this idea of the transactionalism, the transaction 137 effect, right? Like, it starts great, you're relational, you're invested, but then at some point it just becomes a process, and you're more worried about optimizing, perfecting the process than you are about serving the person. So Dad, can you just kind of help us reset our mindset as mortgage professionals of how to get focused back on delivering value, building relationships, and ultimately delivering the American dream?
Well, we've got to keep reminding ourselves every single day that this is the single biggest, most personal and financial transaction that people go through in their lifetime. In most cases, it is what drives more than just their financial being. It touches everything. It touches families. It touches community. It touches everything that consumers deal with. I quote the statistic a lot that Barry Habib shares, that a homeowner in the U.S. has 40 times the wealth of a renter. Now, wealth is not the key here. The key is stability that comes from that wealth. The key is that it brings communities and families together very strongly. So when we talk about this whole mindset that we're providing the American dream, we got to stop selling products and price and loans and quit thinking of ourselves in that mindset. We got to understand that we are helping people to achieve things that are way beyond that. And I'm going to go back because I think it's so important to cover this. Luke 12:48 is one of my favorite verses in Scripture, where it says, to those who much is given, much is expected. Well, we're given the opportunity every day to help people create the American dream, which creates stability, which weaves together families and does all those things. So therefore, if we're given that opportunity, then we've got to do the very best with that every single day. and quit worrying about all the outside factors and just remind ourselves it's a one-to-one relationship. We're here to help that customer change their life in a powerful way. And God has given us the opportunity, the wisdom, the knowledge, the position to be able to do that. Remind yourself of that and go into things and quit worrying about all of the externals and worry about the internals. There's really only two things that matter at the end of the day as an originator. That's your mindset and your methodology. And those two things are not mutually exclusive, but mutually inclusive. You've got to have the right mindset going in to understand you're there to help people and be relational in your approach. And then you have to have the right methodology to help them actually get a loan that makes sense for them. When you combine those two things, you're doing exactly what God asked you to do.
Yeah.
So good.
It is good. All of this reminds me of a tip that I know Coach Bill gave. Dad, I know I remember you had an interview with a loan officer who talked about they literally took their home office, and with every customer that they completed a loan with, they took a picture with that person or family and they put it on the wall, and they have like hundreds and hundreds of photos in their office that they can look to every single day. Coach Will, can you talk about the power of building a Y-file, as you like to call it?
Yeah, man. So the Y-file is something Daniel Harkavy taught me to do years ago, and it was just a reminder of, as a coach, yes, I was showing up in 30-minute and 1-hour sessions, and we were working around tactics and all of that. But at the end of the day, he said, you're going to have people that are going to make 10 times as much as you in a given month. And to be reminded of that, hang on to those cards and emails that they send you. And so anyway, I've kept them in a file. But I think in the mortgage space, an easy way to do that is to create, you can either create a tangible version of that or literally have it on a separate screen where you've got just pictures of families. A great phrase to keep in your head is families, not files. It's very easy in this business, right, to be focused on files. But if you remember the connection to the families, as Dale said, that's just an enormous game changer. And, I'm also reminded of a scripture that I had to look up. This stuff is not memorized and in my head. So I'm talking to people right now who are like, wow, all of these guys have all this scripture memorized. Like, I just don't. So I had to look this one up, but it's 2 Timothy 1:7. For God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. So if we translate that into the mortgage industry, fear could be an AR settlement. What's happening with rates, lack of inventory, right? That could be the fear that's all around us right now. But instead, if we focus on power and love and self-control, what we're really focused on there is what we've been equipped with, what you've been trained with. You all know how to do a great file, like you just do. You know how to put together a great file and submit that and get it approved to the best of your ability within the guidelines that you know. But I think that the broader thing to stay connected to is, as Dale always says, so Dale, thank you for this constant reminder. We are the connection to the great American dream. Are there people who will pay cash? Yes, cash deals are always going to be out there. I think it's a third of the market maybe right now. But you know what? That other 2/3, they need our help. We're in the money business, and we're going to help them. We're going to help them with their dreams because of that. So focus on the love part, the power part, the assurance part. And I just think it helps us to show up more powerfully every single day because we marinate in the goodness of the memories that are created from every successful transaction.
Good.
That's so good. So one of our episodes was all about selflessness. It's exactly what you're talking about, Coach Bill. We even, I think, referenced the verse where Jesus teaches, what is love? What's a better example of love than a man who's willing to lay down his life for his friends, right? Yeah. And obviously Jesus was the ultimate example of that. We talked about a recent example in Corey Comparator. Kyle, you brought up a really good point during that episode where you talked about how, because Coach Bill just gave you encouragement saying, hey, look, Kyle is one of the most selfless people that I know. He's always willing to say yes to an opportunity, to an experiment, to try and add value to people's lives. And you sort of flipped it and you said, well, yeah, I mean, yes, I was taught selflessness by my family, but more than being taught, it was caught. So can you talk about, one, what that meant for you, and then two, maybe what that could look like for, one, how we could influence other people by being selfless, and especially if we're in a leadership role in our team, like how it starts with us, if we want love and respect and selflessness to ripple through our cultures.
Yeah. I got to give my parents credit for all of this. they're who I watched, for years growing up. But I think, Jake, it can start so simple, So imagine today, if you just say, you know what, everywhere I go today, I'm going to open the door for somebody. Like, I will not go in first. And so just start very simple, right? Because living a selfless life takes a long time to work out all the selfishness that we all naturally have in us. And so it may be just as simple as starting there. And then one of the things that like I love to do, and I watch my parents do this, is like if I take my daughter through, like the Starbucks line in the drive-thru, we'll tell the person at the window, like, hey, we want to pay for the car behind us. And I remember watching my daughter go, Dad, why would we pay for the car behind us? And it would give me the opportunity to say, honey, because we can, right? Because God's blessed us. We want to bless others, and we want to be a reservoir and not a dam. And I think it's all those little things that lead to truly living that selfless life, where now as a 41-year-old, I can truly say that, like, when I'm in conversation with people, it comes natural to always be thinking, what's in this for Dale? What's in this for Bill? What's in this for Jake? What can I do to serve this person? Knowing that if I reap what I sow, I'm going to get back more than I could ever give. But it takes time to get there. And so, we could even probably provide, if we put our heads together, a 1-page PDF of like 30 acts of kindness that don't cost you anything. And I don't know, maybe we could even do like a 30 days of kindness challenge, because that's how simple this can be, but it's so profound.
Yeah. So, Dad, you give, talking about 30 acts of kindness, like you give so many examples in our training of what does it look like to truly put the customer first, or truly put your referral partner first, or truly put your colleague first, or truly put your manager first, whatever that looks like. Can you walk through some of those examples just to make this really tactical and practical for mortgage pros? Like, how do you be selfless in your business? And then if you could speak to, like, what does that do for you? Because I think we all believe it does create reciprocity, and you're going to do more business if you lead with selflessness.
Well, great question, Jake. And I think the first key to this is I'm going to give everybody 2 words. You better write them down, and you better live by these. Slow down. Slow down. That's the whole problem in a nutshell in the mortgage arena that I see. Everybody's in a hurry. We're in a hurry to take the application. We're in a hurry to qualify the bar. We're in a hurry to get the appointment. We're in a hurry to get the partnership. We're in a hurry for everything. And I never understand why. If we're going to be selfless, and if we're going to put people before ourselves, that means we've got to take the time to honor them, to listen to them, to ask all the right questions, to get to know them. We're investing. That's what we're doing. So you can't invest if you don't take the time to invest. You can't say to somebody, I want to know everything about you. I got 4 minutes. It doesn't work that way. Okay. If I want to know everything about you, then I'm willing to settle in as long as it takes to find out what that is. And I hear it from people all the time in this industry. Well, I'm so busy. Well, no, you're busy because you're not doing it right the first time. You're busy because you're not taking the time to really understand your partners and your customers and your colleagues at a level that when you work with them, you can actually solve their problems, because you can't solve what you don't understand, and you can't understand what you don't take the time to listen to and engage in. So I think the key to everything is we've got to learn not just to do those moments of kindness. I love what Kyle was just talking about. I think that's so absolutely powerful. We should wake up every day and say, hey, today's Christmas, because it seems like we're always really nice on Christmas Day. And the rest of the year, we throw it out the window. So maybe we just got to get up and go, hey, Merry Christmas, and act like it's Christmas every day. I don't know if that's what it takes. But we got to, once we get out and be kind, it doesn't do any good to drop a kind word, but then be too busy to listen to the person walk away. Yeah. You've got to be willing to invest in them once you do that. When you do that, it changes the whole game. And all of a sudden, you're incredibly successful. And if we want to be super tactical here, I'm going to remind everybody again, how many sales a day does it take to close 15 loans a month? 1. If you spend enough time with one customer a day to literally get to know them, take an application, do everything right, you're putting 1 deal a month in your pipeline. That's 20 a month. 70% of those on average fund, that's 15 loans a month, no matter how you slice it. There's a lot of people would love to do 15 loans a month right now.
No doubt. So Dale, you just triggered a conversation that I heard last week from Kevin O'Loughlin, one of our top producers in the Pittsburgh market, and he'll do 400 loans this year, and 2024, that's a pretty good year. And he said he was early in the year, he was sending out his app via text. Like when he got a lead, he would send the blend out. In our case, he would send that app out. And in a high volume market, sometimes you're forced to do that. And he said, I realized what was happening was, because he tracks his conversion very closely. He said, what I realized was I wasn't setting a phone appointment with those people and learning about them. So he's emphatic now about, now I do that every time because I need to learn. I need to create some rapport. I need to listen to them, find out what's going on in their lives. So from a tactical and practical, Jake, loved that. Never heard those two words strung together before. That's really good. You probably got it from your dad, is my guess.
For sure.
But
100%.
But yeah, whatever. From a tactical and practical perspective, if that's you right now, if you're just firing out an online app and you're wondering 48, 72 hours later why it didn't convert, maybe you didn't connect with them. And so to Dale's point, slow down, schedule the call, make sure that you understand where people are coming from. And they're not always looking for the lowest rate, you guys. In our business, that's the great lie. I mean, we even have a company called that, right? Like, you all know what I'm talking about.
More than one.
That's not, exactly. That's not the bottom line. The bottom line is that's what the consumer has been trained to ask.
Yeah.
But it's not the ultimate door opener. So Dale, thank you for that. That's such a good reminder to slow down.
That's so true. It's funny. I was listening to a business podcast over the weekend, and the host said, I learned a really important thing that made me successful. Be generous with everything but my time. And that advice might get you rich, but it's not going to win you a lot of friends. And I just really, in this industry specifically, I just don't think that's going to fly for you. And I think Coach Bill and Dale, I think you guys just fully disproved, you know what I mean? That advice. So good.
Sure.
So good. So the last episode that I know we want to take time to cover before we have to close today, unfortunately, is we talked about readiness. We talked about what it looks like to be ready as a professional. We kind of talked about two different forms of readiness. We talked about sort of, I ended up renaming my phrases for this afterwards. Acute readiness, which is like, you've got a sales call coming up, you've got a prospective referral partner appointment, and you are getting ready for that. We all kind of agreed that there's a bazillion business books that can teach you processes for how to do that. Ultimately, it comes down to being organized and intentional. But what we talked a lot more about was this idea of being continually ready, right? Refining your mindset, continually investing in training, like doing the things that are going to make you ready to respond in the best possible way when you least expect them, whatever that is, right? A loan falls through pipeline. Your barista asks about mortgages or what you do. I mean, you name it. There's any number of situations. All of you had great advice on what you do in your own lives and what you coach your clients to do to cultivate this continual readiness. Can you just pick one and share it with the audience before we have to close today? Now I can call on the names to get started. That helps. Kyle, you're muted, man. Kyle, you're muted, man.
I was saying I'm gonna lean on the coaches to take us home with this advice.
I was last up. Dale, you go ahead. Bring us home.
Well, I think the key, look, there's an old saying that says, if you're not prepared, then you're going to fail. Either prepare yourself in the front or you fail on the back. That's just all there is to it. So if we're going to be successful in all aspects of life, we've got to start with a readiness every single day that says, I've got my mind right and I'm prepared for whatever's happening. And we talked about the importance of that, really beginning with starting your day with gratefulness. I think that's the way we become the most ready for things, is by starting our day by being grateful for all the things that we have. I just had Barry Habib on Batting 1,000 recently. Barry's going through a terrible bout with cancer. And all he kept saying was how grateful he was for all the things that he had in life. And Barry lives that life out. He's not just saying that. I've known him for 25 years. He is every bit of that man. And when I see him, I see an example of somebody who's always ready with a kind word, always ready for what the next thing's going to come. And it's because he's prepared in all that he does. So if we're going to be ready for the world we face today, we got to get up in the morning and we got to start that day right. We got to be grateful. We got to be thankful. We got to be in our Bibles. We got to be reading and listening to powerful things. We got to surround ourselves with powerful, positive people. And when you do that, there's nothing that's going to take you off your game. And when it does, you stop and you do it again. You just go back to gratefulness, and it takes you right back in that position of readiness all over again.
So good. Kyle, let's finish with this because you added a thought to this last time we talked about this. You walk through all the steps to be prepared. You go through the talking points, you come through your presentation, you name it, to be ready to do what it is that you do. But then there's this last step that ultimately really seals your success, which is you offer it up to God. Can you talk about what that looks like in people's lives?
Yeah. I just know that I'm not smart enough to walk on stage, walk into a coffee, walk into a sales call, and hope that I can do it by myself. And so for me, for 2+ decades, I've just always practiced like, Lord, something really important is about to happen, and I need you to go before me, because if I show up without you, I don't know that it's going to end incredibly well. And so give me your words and prepare their hearts. Like, that's really the prayer down into one statement is give me your words, prepare their hearts, and then use me however you desire in this situation. And it's amazing, like, just how the pressure just falls off your shoulders when I'm able to go, all right, I'm good. It's not about me anymore. Lord, they know that I love you. And so if I look foolish on this stage, you're going to look foolish too. So you better do something awesome. And in 20+ years of reminding him of that, he's yet to fail me, because even in all my moments when I'm like, ugh, that was the worst talk I've ever given, somebody walks up to me and goes, you just changed my life. Right. And it's just that reminder that, like, God doesn't need me to be awesome for him to be able to be awesome.
For sure.
Amen.
And so, and I'll to close it on, Coach Bill, you shared 2 Timothy 1:7. In one version it said self-discipline, and another, I don't even remember what Coach Bill, what yours said, but in my Bible it says, and a sound mind. And I mean, how much could our world right this second just use the ability to be able to go, and like your mind isn't racing, it's not full of worry, fear, and angst. Like, that's what this does for you.
So good.
So good.
I love what Susan Surkamp, and Susan, so awesome to see you here. Susan is the bomb. I mean, Dad can speak to Susan's business.
You're the best, man.
Killer. She says, I always say, do your best and trust God for the rest. That's so easy to remember. Do your best, trust God for the rest. I love
Susan.
that.
Susan's preaching.
So good. Well, gentlemen, that's our time today. Thank you so much for recapping the first 4 episodes of Success by the Book. Obviously, some hugely important pillars of a successful business: having confidence, being dedicated, finding ways to be selfless, and then always being prepared. Such great tips. We're going to put this out for the world to see for those who weren't able to be with us live today. But if you'd like to, you can join us live next week, as always, Mondays, 8 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Central, and 11 a.m. Eastern. And we look forward to seeing you then and there. So just find us on the socials, follow us on your podcast feed, you name it. We'll see you then. Thanks, gentlemen.
Bless. Thanks, everybody.
Later.